came on to me saying just looking for the of Russia. I think Rus being an area and Shah meaning. Just trying to see it. Yeah, from Rus. The area was called Rus. And Shah being king says, Prince of Rus, Meshach and Tubal, and prophesy against him and say, Thus the Lord God, behold, I am against thee, O God, chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks in thy jaws. And we see since 2014, basically, or maybe even before that, around the Cold War time, with Boris Yeltsin and Mikhail Gorbachev and stuff, when NATO kept on slowly encroaching on Russia's territory, and Russia's always known, and NATO has always known that if they are to go into war, it's the big one. So Russia's been playing kitten and trying to avoid conflict, but eventually, what with threats to Ukraine joining NATO and being on the doorstep of Russia, they got the hooks in their jaws and had to come out fighting, had to come out swinging. So this is what it is. I'll put hooks in their jaws. That is, I will draw you into battle, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armour, even the great company. The great company being, even with your boys, yeah. So the boys might be, who's fighting? Serbia, I think, on the side of the Russians. Who else? A couple of other nations siding with Russia. India, kind of both sides. Turkey's playing both sides. Yeah, but Russia got some allies. They got their Chinese people for a start. North Korea, thinking of rolling in, and then you got the whole BRICS nations. So, maybe Brazil might get involved economically. And economic warfare is warfare. So when they're doing sanctions, you think, oh yeah, this country's sanctioned. That's warfare. It's just financial warfare. It's still warfare. So when you seen European unions, when you're seeing BRICS nations, when you're seeing, I don't know, North Atlantic or NATO, whatever they're called, you have to understand that these are military alliances as much as they are financial, because finance is a form of military. It's a branch of the military, if you like. Even the great company with bucklers and shields. What's a buckler? A hook, also shield. So it's like where you're hooking or you like a scabbard where you're holding your swords and stuff. So that is being this, saying that these people are gonna come out with, they're gonna be bearing arms basically. All of them handling swords, Persia, Ethiopia and Libya with them. All of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all of his bands, the House of Togomath on the North Quarters. Let's try and pull up a map, an ancient map, and get it, because a lot of the time I'm hearing, oh yeah, you got to look at the maps and stuff, but not many people actually break out the maps in their chat, in their lessons. So let's get it. Gomer, Meshach, Tubal, let's find these areas. So let me just get this straight. So I found a good map here. We can see Magog, Gomer, and Meshach and Tubal. We cross-reference that with maybe a more modern day map. You can see that we're talking about There's the Caspian Sea. We're talking about that whole area of Russia. Also, Goma coming into Egypt and Iraq. You know, see, let's get that straight. So just under the Black Sea and around, basically around the Black Sea. So let's find that. What was that one? That was quite interesting. Yeah, so you see Rush, as we were talking about, the king of Russia, you know, and you can see where Gomer is, which is around the Caucasus Mountains. You can see the land of Gog and Magog and Gomer, and then I can't say Meshech or Tubal, but so basically we're looking at everything but west of the Black Sea. So let's get back onto a modern map. We just had the Black Sea there. So we're looking about Turkey, Georgia, Azerbaijan, and then there's all this kind of Russian area up there, Ukraine and that. So that's the areas we're talking about in Ezekiel chapter 38. Let's get back into it. Gomer and all of his bands, the house of Togarmah of the North Quarters. So, going back here. Gomer. That's like Turkey. You know what I mean? So, and we already know that Turkey and Russia, it's kind of playing the middleman between NATO, and because Turkey's part of NATO, but also, sides kind of got good relationships with Russia, so it's kind of like trying to play both sides of the fence. But let me make sure I got that right. As you can see, my geography ain't great. Yeah, so Turkey is that area known as Gomer on the ancient map. You see that? Let's get back into it. Gomer and all of his bands, the House of Togarmah and the North Quarters, and all of his bands and the people with that could be the Serbs or the any other, the Kazakhs who are, kind of allied quite closely with Russia, and be thou prepared and prepare thyself, and prepare for thyself thou and all thy company that thou assemble unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. After many days thou shalt be visited, and the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword, and is gathered out of many people, and against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste, but is brought forth. So like the mountains of Israel being the people, and here I think the mountains of Israel could be, as it's seen as a location, but also the people of Israel, which has been always waste. So we've been wasted in it, but it's been brought forth, but it is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. That shall ascend and come down like a storm, that shall be like a cloud to cover the land. And they know these prophecies. That's why Israel, at the moment, the Israeli government is getting jittery, because they know that this war is going to eventually come up down to them, and they're trying to bolster, because they know that, like, say for example, that Persia was mentioned as one of Russia's boys, that borders right against with Israel. Iran and Israel are very close in terms of, let's see, let me check my geography, because my geography sucks, man. Let's get that Israel. Country in the Middle East. So that's Israel there. So you can see where Iran is. It's Syria, Saudi Arabia. I think Iran is further down, isn't it? So Iran is kind of on the other side of Iraq, right? Although these people and these places are not necessarily. So we know that Turkey's going to, according to prophecy, Turkey's going to be down with Tubal, Cain. the Russians, the Prince of Tubal or Magog, Gog and Magog. Georgia, all these areas, they're down with Russia. That's known as Gog. Azerbaijan, I'm not sure. Syria, I'm not sure. But we can see that they're gonna come down these areas either the Russians themselves, or according to prophecy, one of the Russians' companies, yeah? And we already know that Iran and Russia are rolling deep. We also know that Georgia's rolling deep with Russia, otherwise known as Gog, I think. Goma, Turkey, Persia, all of these people are, and it's prophesied that these people are going to make their way across into Israel. So right now, Israel's like trying to start up, trying to get support, for or trying to start some shit with Iran and maybe a preemptive strike to try. They're trying to like wiggle their way out of prophecy, man. You ain't gonna wiggle your way out of this, man. Once it's said, it's done. I mean, you're talking about a planet that was created on the word and the will of the Most High. I mean, the ground you walk on is there because of His will, and then you're gonna say that you're gonna be able to try and game your way out of it, out of the prophecies, when it's His will that's already been expressed, and the words have already been said, spoken, and written by the Most High and His prophets. No, man, you ain't getting out of this, man. After many days thou shalt be visited, in the latter years thou shalt come into the land. And the latter years means the last days, yeah? That's not like, I don't know what you might think it is, but it's the last days, times that, you can go into Matthew, you think it's 24, 23, 24, when they talk about how to recognize the last days. Maybe it's Matthew 28, sorry, my precepts ain't that good, but around Matthew 23 to 28, Yahushua is going through how to recognize the last days. Also in 2nd Ezra 35, I think, and talk about how to recognize the last, when time's coming to an end, so you'll be able to see that shall come from Jacob unto Isaac, and from Isaac unto Jacob, when Jacob first felt Esau's hand heal, and that was a sign to say that Esau was at the end of the world. So at the end of the world, Esau's going to be in rulership, and Jacob is going to be holding up, grabbing by the heel, grabbing by the weak spot. After many days thou shalt be visited, in the latter years thou shalt come to land that is brought back from the sword, and is gathered out of many people against the mountains of Israel, which have been always laid waste, but is brought forth out of the nations. Yeah, so it's gathered out of many people, So many people brought Israel together, Many people brought Israel back from the sword. But then you're going to come against the mountains of Israel, which are the Israelites, but also the land of the Israelites, which have always been laid waste, but is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. That shall ascend and come down like a storm. That shall be like a cloud to cover the land, thou and all thy bands, as and all your crew, and many people with thee. Thus saith the Lord God, it shall also come to pass, that at the same time shall things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought. Evil meaning, yeah, I'm going to bad them up still. So it's not like a thought that's like, I don't know, you ain't like dastardly thinking or thinking anything satanic. It's just like, I'm going to do these people something. You know what I mean? I'm going to do something that's going to harm people. And thou shalt say, I will go into the land of the unwalled villages, and I will go into them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls, and having neither bars nor gate, to take a spoil, and to take a prey, and to turn thine hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, and upon out of the nations which have gotten cattle and goods that dwell in the midst of the land. Sheba and Dedan and the merchants of Tarshish, with all the young lions, therefore shall say unto thee, art thou come to take a spoil? Hast thou gathered thy company to take a prey, to carry away silver and gold, to take away cattle and goods, and to take away great spoil? So at that point, you're going to be looking at Israel now. I'm not sure if it's a people or a place in this scenario, but he's going to be looking at Israel and thinking, I'm going to just go and bad them up and take all their shit, basically. And then all these people are going to be like, this land where it's not necessarily guarded. Could be even Palestine, but it's like a place that they don't necessarily have a strong military. Now we know that the Israeli nation does have a strong military, so it might be somewhere nearby, like Palestine. They're going to be like, are you going to really come and just mash us up like that and just take our shit? Therefore, Son of Man, prophesy and say unto God, that thus saith the Lord God, in that day my people of Israel, when my people of Israel dwell safely, shall thou not know it? And thou shalt come from thy place out of the north, and thou and many come with thee, all of them riding upon horses, a great company and a mighty army. And it's not going to be really horses, right? It's going to be like, I don't know, tanks or whatever. Kind of make a metaphor of the things that they've seen from the future. A great company and a mighty army, and thou shalt come up against the people of Israel as a cloud to cover the land. It shall be in the latter days that I will bring thee against my land, that my heathen may know me, that the heathen may know me, when I shall be sanctified in thee, O Gog, before their eyes. So sanctified means seen as holy or known to be holy, to observe as clean, right? To be made to so when you're sanctified, it's like, oh shit, you are the living power, being, you are the people of Israel. And so Gog's going to see it, because when he comes against Israel, shit's not going to go his way. Thus saith the Lord God, art thou he whom I have spoken of in old time by my servants and the prophets of Israel, which prophesied in those days many years, that I will bring thee against them? And it shall come to pass at the same time, when Gog shall come against the land of Israel. So it does seem to be a land. They are specifying it is the land. It's not going to be the people. And that's interesting because, obviously Israel isn't really inhabited primarily by Judites, let's put it that way. That my fury shall come in my face, for in my jealousy and the fire of my wrath have I spoken. Surely in that day there shall be a great shaking in the land of Israel, so that the fishes of the sea and the fowls of the heaven and the beasts of the field and all the creeping things that creep upon the earth and all the men that are upon the face of the earth shall shake at my presence, and the mountains shall be thrown down and the steep places shall fall, and every wall shall fall to the ground, and I shall call for a sword against him throughout all my mountains, saith the Lord God. Every man's sword shall be against his brother, and I will plead against him with pestilence and with blood, and I will rain upon him and upon his band and upon the many people that are with him, and overflowing rain and great hailstones, fire and brimstone. Thus will I magnify myself and sanctify myself, and I shall be known in the eyes of many nations, and they shall know that I am the Lord. Ooh, that's a big one. All right, so that's Ezekiel. Next time I'll do 39, but for now I'm going to get some rest. Shalom.